3-eye atlas. What a cool space anomaly, right? I mean, you've got the whole world wondering what the hell this thing is. Some people say they're convinced, but I don't think they are. And I have some new data to share with you today that makes me question things even more. It might make you question things even more, but we're looking for the evidence and we're following the data and we're going where it takes us. So I hope you're having a fantastic day today. Thank you very much for joining me this edition of Leak Project. And I've got about 15 or so articles to share with you with new information on 3-eye atlas. And how about SWAN? How about Comet 2025 SWAN? Let's hope it's not a black swan. This is also showing signs of what is referred to as an anti-tail. So I have some ideas about that. But there's also a couple of new articles that we're going to look at that describe how specific pieces of technology, not only from China, the Chinese space agency, but NASA has been intentionally left out. And they're sharing with us some very low res imaging when in reality, the images are much higher that they have access to. So that I'm wondering why that is. And you're probably wondering why that is too. It doesn't necessarily mean it's an alien spacecraft, but it's definitely something. So we're going to look into this. And before we get into that, I do want to thank our sponsors today. If you haven't got any of this stuff yet, I don't know what the heck you're waiting for. I've been bragging about this stuff now for several years. I take it every single day. The Boomer Boost and the Gladiator Barley. I'm still trying to get them to change the name to Gen X Boost, but I don't think they're going to do that. That doesn't matter. This stuff is incredible. 2 scoops, mix it in some water, drink it, feel amazing. I feel amazing. Take the 30-day challenge. Go to boomerboost.com. Use the code REX20. You'll get an extra 20% off your order. You can also set it up for auto ship and get an additional discount so you can stack the discounts. They have amazing products there. You can talk to them in person. You can order it online, and they will ship it directly to your door. So get some Boomer Boost and Gladiator Barley. Also, check us out on Patreon. It's like $5 a month to be a Patreon member, and you'll get access to thousands of hours of exclusive content. And also our website, leakproject.com. I've got our web developer back, so we're going to be updating our website, putting a ton of exclusive information on there, exclusive podcasts, as well as older podcasts, long format interviews we've done with amazing people. So check us out, Leak Project, Patreon. We're also on Rumble. Hit the bell here on YouTube for all notifications. Hopefully they'll send you the notifications via email. But let's get into this, folks. And how's your day going? All right, we've got some awesome people in the chat already, from Florida to Utah and everywhere in between. Really nice weather out here in Colorado. It's a bit nippy, but it's normal than usual for December, for mid-December. So I'm going to pull this up right now and share with you the latest image. Like, we've got an image from today, folks. We've got images of 3-eye atlas today. Hot off the press. Let's go. Buckle up, Buttercup. This is from today, as you can see right here, and this gives all the details. Found this on Facebook. Oops, let's go back. Where'd you go? Here we go. All right, so when we look at this, when I look at this, oh yeah, by the way, we're doing vertical format and horizontal format. So if you're watching it on vertical and you're on a big screen, you may want to jump over to our other link where you can watch this horizontal, so you'll get a much better view and high resolution. But if you're just watching on your phone, you can watch it on vertical, and it's ideal for the vertical format. When I look at this image and I see this massive tail, and then what kind of looks like an anti-tail, or what is referred to as a jet, it's very strange. It's very bizarre for your typical comet. Now, this isn't your typical comet. This is an interstellar object. But what's also interesting is Comet SWAN is showing signs of an anti-tail also. And I have an interesting theory on that. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But just take a look at that. Isn't that weird? It's very interesting. This is from space.com. And this is from the Very Large Telescope. Let's go ahead and play this out real quick. I'll see if I can. You can see right there, it's moving around. I found this article very interesting. This is on Medium from Shiva Muchi. 3-eye atlas. China just proved the cover-up Tianwen 1 images deliberately degraded 3,600 times. So what does that actually mean? Let me just give you a quick summary of this article. So according to this article on Medium, China released the Tianwen 1 HiRISE image or images of 3I Atlas from its close pass by Mars, October 3rd. But they show only a tiny fuzzy dot a few pixels across. Now, using HiRISE's published resolution and the stated distance of 29 million kilometers, Mucci calculates that a realistic coma size should span hundreds to thousands of pixels, not 3, implying the images were deliberately downsampled by a factor of 1,800 to 3,600 in linear resolution. Ground-based data indicates a CO2-dominated coma hundreds of thousands of kilometers wide, and Professor Loeb's earlier mass loss estimate of 5 billion tons would imply a huge debris cloud that should be obvious in high-resolution imagery. But it isn't. Mucci also argues this fits a broader pattern. The Psyche craft flew within 0.3 astronomical units of 3I Atlas and released no images. HiRISE, the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter images have not been released, officially blamed on the U.S. government shutdown. They shared with us a dot when they did the NASA I don't know, what would you call that? The special edition NASA conference where there were like 3 people talking about comets and how they said, oh, everything that it shows signs that it's a comet. They didn't really get into any details of these anomalies. They didn't get into the electric universe cosmology, which I think explains a lot of it, not all of it. But they just said, oh, don't worry, it's normal, it's totally natural. Let's talk about something else now. Wasn't this fun? I was not impressed with that meeting, with the tens of millions, billions of dollars that we fund NASA. What they share with us publicly, I think, is a joke. That's just my opinion. I think they could do a heck of a lot better, but you know what? That's for a whole other podcast. So back to this article, though. When we get back to this article, which is very interesting, you should read it in full. Shiva Mucci also argues this fits a broader pattern. Like I said, we talked about the Psyche craft that flew within 0.3 astronomical units, the images that haven't been released from HiRISE, and the Chinese imaging was released, but according to the math that he did, this was intentionally degraded. He also concludes this is a coordinated concealment, degrading or withholding close-up imagery that could show whether the non-gravitational acceleration is from natural outgassing, big debris clouds, or something else. Read the paper. Now, this is from Professor Loeb. This is hot off the press, and this is first X-ray detection of 3I Atlas. You can see right here, this is an X-ray image of the interstellar object, 3I Atlas, captured by the Soft X-ray Imaging Telescope, Extend, on board the XRISM Observatory of the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA, displaying a field of view of 3 million kilometers on a side. This image shows a faint emission structure extending out to 400,000 kilometers from 3I Atlas. This is the first X-ray detection of the interstellar object, and it was just reported from the Soft X-ray Imaging Telescope, Extend. Extend consists of an X-ray telescope that focuses incoming X-rays and an X-ray CCD camera that detects the signal and spans a wide field of view, 38.5 arc minutes on a side. The XRISM satellite also includes the instrument Resolve, which performs high-resolution X-ray spectroscopy. The X-ray image shows the faint halo, and Professor Loeb also notes that the X-ray emission is likely coming from solar-wind charge exchange with the gas around 3I Atlas, similar to an X-ray emission seen from solar system comets like Hyakutake. The spectrum shows excess in carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen lines. Before this, 3I Atlas was only seen from UV to radio wavelengths, and XRISM opens a completely new band for studying its extended coma and plume. This gives you a first X-rays from an interstellar visitor and supports the idea of a huge gas-rich environment around the object. This is from the ESA, the European Space Agency. And it's, so I watched this video. Let's watch this video, see if it'll play out for us here. It was taken. Can I mute? Okay. So this right here, they claim that they got a little piece of information out of the spacecraft. They were able to extract a little bit of information, but not all of it. Why wouldn't you be able to extract all of it? I find that a ridiculous excuse, but they're like, well, you know, scientists couldn't wait. So we extracted a little bit of information to show you, but we didn't extract all of it. That's not going to be available until February. See right there? Won't be available until February, but we were able to get a little bit of information. So this is what we're looking at here from the European Space Agency. More on 3i Atlas, what they call a quick sneak peek. I'm going to pause this right here. So here's the plasma tail. Here's the potential dust tail and the Comet. Pretty interesting. These are also very interesting images of 3i Atlas. The Comet 3i Atlas from the Hubble Space Telescope. The enhancement shows the complex morphology of the two-tail and the jets sorting from the nucleus. Probably never seen the comet. In the following paper, this is the paper right here, from E. Keto and Professor Loeb, the physics of the phenomena elaboration, right there. So there's all the data. Check this out. Let's zoom in on this a little bit more. This I find fascinating, where it looks like it's got these two massive tails shooting out both sides of the object. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And also we have new data from astrobiology, astrobiology.com. All right, check this out. This is pretty cool. Yeah, Ray's astrophotography, I think Ray does a pretty good job. I think he's still learning like all of us, but I really appreciate how he is taking his time and his equipment, and he's following and tracking this object and coming up with his own ideas and theories as well. Some great imaging. Some people say that his imaging is just as good as what we're seeing from NASA. And in a lot of circumstances, it is. It's even better in some cases. But this is a really cool paper that I think adds to the interest and the mystery of 3i Atlas. Sphere X pre-perihelion mapping of H2O, CO2, and CO in interstellar object 3i Atlas. So you've probably seen a multitude of papers come out recently talking about how 3i Atlas has the building blocks for life, which it does. And a lot of comets and asteroids that have been studied have building blocks for life, which is another reason I do not think we're alone in the universe. With this big, I mean, there's like 10 billion stars approximately just in the Milky Way galaxy. There's billions of galaxies. There's black holes so far into space. They're shooting out weird phenomena that's 50 times wider than the Milky Way galaxy. So to say we're the only intelligent civilization in the universe is very narcissistic, very ignorant, and complete speculation, because we found the building blocks for life in space. There's plenty of Goldilocks zones in space, but this is a really cool paper describing how, so this is, let's look at this motion of 3i. Color composite from Sphere X data. The trajectory of 3i Atlas is overplotted with observed positions marked by crosses. The starting and ending points of our data set are indicated separately. So very interesting paper to look into. Here's the paper. The physics of cometary antitels as observed in 3i Atlas. This talks about the antitels. Now, its official explanation of the antitels, observations of interstellar comet 3i Atlas at 3.8 astronomical units, which is a long way away, shows an elongated coma similar to a cometary tail, but pointing in the direction of the sun. Possibly the first instance of this type of antitel, which is not a result of perspective. We explain the antitel as an anisotropic nanu extension of the snow line, or a survival radius of a sublimating ice grain in the direction of the sun. See, I think it's plasma. I don't necessarily agree with that, but this is your traditional cosmology on comets and their way to describe it without bringing in the electric universe cosmology. The anisotropy is due to difference in the sublimation mass flux in the solar and perpendicular directions caused by the change in the illumination angle of the cometary surface. The stronger sublimation's mass flux in the solar direction results in ice grains with larger sizes, longer sublimation lifetimes, and a snow line at a larger radial distance with respect to other directions. The observed radial surface brightens profiles as a function of illumination angle are well reproduced by a Hazer-type radial outflow with constant velocity and sublimating ice grains with angularly dependent survival lengths. Did you get that? Let's pull this up real quick. These are the most recent images from the European Space Agency. Probably saw this one. Okay, so this is the one that I wanted to talk about now, which is Comet 2025 R2 SWAN, which has also shown signs of an anti-tail. Did you see that? They just showed where 3i Atlas was, and now they're showing SWAN right here. Check that out. Looks like it's got a headlight, right? So it was first spotted by Ukrainian amateur astronomer Vladimir Bezugli, September 11th, and images taken by the SWAN solar wind anisotropies instrument aboard SOHO, which over 5,000 comets have been discovered thus far, and many by citizen scientists in SOHO imaging over the past 3 decades. I mean, I was showing this on Facebook, and my friend Jay said, Rex, it's not a tail or an anti-tail. That's a headlight. It kind of looks like a headlight. See where 3i. What if these people, okay, so let's take the theory away that it's a spaceship. Let's say it is actually a comet, 3i Atlas, as well as SWAN here. And they're both showing similar anti-tail features and at about the same time. Like, what does that mean? And why would we see 2 objects in a very close span showing similar characteristics that are very out of the normal? Well, it could potentially be that they're from a planet that exploded. Who knows how long, like just some massive cataclysm deep in the universe where where 2 planets collide and these chunks break off at extremely fast speeds, traveling through the universe, being bombarded with different types of energies and radiation. And that's why we're seeing them in our solar system at a very, in the same time frame, very close together, or pretty close together, astronomically speaking, because they're pieces of a planet that exploded at the, it happened at the same time. So they're traveling close together in proximity. That's one theory that I have, is they're pieces of a planet traveling through the universe, and they've been traveling for so long, once again being bombarded with so much radiation, that they're showing these signs of anti-tails, etc., that aren't typical with traditional comets. And at the same time, 3i Atlas, see, here's what's interesting. Why are we not being given the high resolution imaging from NASA, from Japan, from Europe, from these different space agencies around the world? It seems like there is a coordinated effort to suppress certain imaging. Now, we all have to speculate and come up with our own ideas why we're not getting the beef. Like, where's the beef? Where's the beef? Well, they've got the beef. They're not showing us the beef. They're giving us tofu. We want the beef. Like, show us what's really going on. This is what we're getting. We're getting little bits and pieces. So I don't know what the hell is going on as far as why they're hiding this, unless there is something that could be a potential cataclysm-like scenario, or something that they have been hiding for a very long time that they don't want us to see. But really, really weird. So yeah, as of December 9th, the big structure, this is talking about this one right here. Like, look at that. Isn't that weird? That's really weird. Okay, now I wanted to talk about this. So the 3i Atlas, has a 16-hour, 16-minute rotation. 16 hours and 16 minutes is the rotation of 3i Atlas, give or take a little bit. But that's what astronomers and researchers are claiming based upon the data, that it's moving and rotating every 16 hours and 16 minutes. That's interesting numbers, right? Very interesting numbers. So I was like, well, what about the biblical scriptures? And the thing I find fascinating about biblical scriptures is so much in the Bible, whether it's the New International Version, the King James Version, there's various translations and various versions of what we call the Bible. But a lot of the biblical scriptures you can take back to ancient Sumer and Babylon and Greece and other places around the world. And it is oftentimes referring to events that are taking place in the heavens or space, astrotheology. Micah Dank does a pretty good job, I think a really good job, when he describes how a lot of these passages are actually referencing different zodiac signs, whether it be the scorpion, like the giant scorpion dudes that are half scorpions, half monsters in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh is fighting off like scorpions and lions. And when you reference these specific beings or deities, like half scorpion man, Scorpio, or you reference the lion, it's referencing Leo. So a lot of these scriptures, they're actually talking about signs in the heavens. Remember when we had the great eclipse that just went over last year that created an X pattern over the US? There was the great eclipse also in 2017, did the first pass and then another pass 2024, 7 years later. And then there were many towns. I was about to say villages, but they're towns. There were many towns in the totalitarian path of the eclipse, like the shadowing or close to it, that had names referenced in the Bible. And then the X, one of the major locations of these eclipse paths was in Illinois, and that town is called Little Egypt. And then Nineveh, there were towns called Nineveh. And so it seems like if we go back thousands of years, the ancients knew about the stars and the planets and the alignments and eclipses. Even Mayan culture, Aztecs, the natives, they studied the stars, they studied the planets. And if you knew when an eclipse was going to take place, you could also, like, if nobody else knew, but you knew about this eclipse and you wanted to act like a god or a prophet, or like a prophet, you could say, if you don't do what I tell you to do, you're going to see signs in the heaven that will show you need to follow my lead. You need to follow what I say. And you're going to see the sun black out for 3 hours in a few days. And that's because you are a sinner or something. I'm just using some examples. Or you didn't listen to me, so I'm going to black out the sun in 3 days. Because that person knows that an eclipse is going to take place in 3 days and it's going to block the sun. And then people that don't know about the solar, the alignments of the stars and the planets, etc., they're going to think, oh my gosh, we sinned. We're doing something wrong. We need to follow this guy's rules. We need to do what he says. It's very interesting, but it seems to me that when we look at these timelines and these events and these orbits of certain stars and planets and and the constellations, the way they move in the heavens, and we read these biblical scriptures, it's oftentimes describing these events, and they happen oftentimes thousands of years later, hundreds of years later. So we think it's prophecy. Is it prophecy? I mean, you could look at it that way, but it's also the mechanics of the universe. It's the mechanics of space. So when we think about this 16-hour, 16-minute rotation of 3i Atlas, and then when we look at 3i Atlas and its closest, let me pull this up down here. So this is showing the dates and the distances of 3i Atlas and these planets in our solar system. And it will be closest to Earth on the 19th of December which is right about the same time of the winter solstice, which is actually the 21st. So is it a sentient being that's traveling through the system to bring the awareness to humanity for some like higher consciousness or something? A lot of people have speculated that. Some people think it's a way for this object to communicate with us. And, others are just like, well, it is what it is. The universe is a big place and things happen. So we can't really put a specific finger on this. We just need to observe and here's the data. And that's totally cool. I appreciate that. But what's interesting is when we look at 1616, where are we at here? Here we go. Check this out. These are some Bible verses. Now we'll just use, I guess, the New International Version. That's close enough. I mean, I typically like to use the direct translations, but this is close enough. This will do. So Mark 16:16. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned. Matthew 16:16. Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." John 16:16. In a little while you will see me no more, and then after a little while you will see me. Revelation. This is my favorite scripture in the biblical text. Then they gathered the kings together to the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. Well, that's interesting. 16:16, Armageddon, the revealing, 3i Atlas, 16:16. Proverbs 16:16. How much better to get wisdom than gold, to get insight than silver. Deuteronomy 16:16. 3 times a year, all your males are to appear before the Lord your God at the place he will choose, at the festival of unleavened bread, the festival of weeks, and the festival of booths. No one shall appear before the Lord empty-handed. Romans 16:16. Greet one another with a holy kiss. All the churches of Christ send greetings. That's just a few, but this one I think is the most fascinating right here, Revelation 16:16. Then they gathered the kings together to the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. Kind of seems like we're getting, hey, what's up, Angela? How you doing? Got Angela in the chat from Utah. We've got Kat in the chat from the UK. We've got Daryl in the chat. Daryl, I don't know where you're at, but you're here now with us. Thank you. Brandon, Jenny, Matilda, Migglefitch, Al 3I or 3Y3. Who else we got? We Free, Susan, Ryan, Kitten Shops, Road Rage. All right. We got a bunch of cool people in the chat. That's what I'm talking about. I love seeing amazing people. Daryl, you're in Southern Tennessee. That's awesome. Right on. So anyway, like, what do you think about this with the conflict we have right now with Russia and China and Taiwan and Japan and Ukraine and Venezuela? There's a buildup. There's definitely a buildup. Now, whether or not this is just going to be more of the same, I really hope we don't go into World War III. But there's a lot of hybrid tactics that are being used right now. Maybe World War III won't be what we thought it would be 40 years ago during the Cold War. You know, like this nuclear destruction of the planet. Maybe it's now more of a hybrid type system with technologies, using technologies to interfere with communications and businesses and corporations and commercial and industrial. It just seems like there's too much going on around the world to ignore. And the timing of these objects like 3i Atlas and Comet SWAN, very, very interesting. Very interesting. But you know what? Here's the thing. Kitten Shop's mom. I love that name. That's great. How you doing? Here's the thing. There's always rumors of war. When has there not been a war somewhere or rumors of war somewhere? I mean, welcome to Earth. I don't know if this planet has ever been in complete peace, maybe when it originated, but then it was at war with itself because it was, it was on fire or freezing or, I mean, whatever. It's just, this can be a very hostile environment. So that's the thing. When we look at these scriptures and we think that it's the end of the world because we see these signs that are in signatures, it may be the end of an era, but there's always a new beginning. Each action has an opposite and equal reaction. So I'm all for studying scriptures. I think they're fascinating and incredible, but I don't look at it as absolute literal. Like I look at it as metaphorical. Let's go back real quick if we can. I kind of skipped out a little bit on this one. I want to go back to this right here from astrobiology talking about 3I Atlas. Here we go. So NASA's Sphere X pre-perihelion mapping of H2O, CO2, and CO. The spacecraft observed 3I Atlas from August 1st through the 15th using low-resolution spectroscopy. They detected strong CO2 gas emissions, water vapor, CO2 and CO lines. They found a slightly extended H2O coma, a huge CO2 atmosphere extending out hundreds of thousands of kilometers from the nucleus. Gas production rates on the order of 10 to the 26th power, 10 to the 27th molecules per second for the main species. The continuum suggests a small nucleus. So now they're saying the nucleus, the radius is approximately 2.5 kilometers, embedded in a coma that's 100 times brighter than the nucleus, with modest light curve variations. Behavior and composition look like a hyperactive CO2-rich comet nearing the end of its life, they say, reminiscent of Comet 103P Hartley 2, and more thermally processed than 2I Borisov, which is the second interstellar object that we had observed. So this is your CO2 monster, enormous CO2 coma, modest water, and a small, heavily processed nucleus. Now let's talk about this paper for a minute. I'll just give you the update on it. The authors integrate 3I Atlas's orbit backward through the galactic potential and cross-match which stellar motion catalogs to look for close stellar flybys that could be its parent system. They identify several candidates' past encounters with a fraction of a parasec, but none stands out as a unique smoking gun, parent star. Their statistical analysis supports the idea that 3I Atlas likely originated in the Milky Way's thin or thick disk, ejected from the outskirts of a planetary system, not from an exotic environment like the galactic center. This aligns with the Wikipedia thin, thick disk origin discussion and possible age of up to 7 billion years old if it came from the thick disk. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. More on 3I Atlas. And thank you for watching. Please leave your comments in the comments section. Share this video out if you would. And remember to make sure to hit the bell for all notifications. Check us out on Patreon and Rumble also. Have a beautiful day. Be excellent to each other. Question everything. And be the change you want to see.